Hello guys, and welcome to another exciting video on this channel. In this video I'm going to show you how you can edit a pretty bad picture in Affinity Photo and turn it into an amazing picture. Now on the screen you can see here is this picture that I have taken, and clearly you can see that it is a pretty bad picture because it is dark. The object of or actually the subject of this picture, this peacock, is not clearly visible. Also you can see behind this peacock that it is not taken in in the wildlife environment. It was taken in a zoo. So you can see these bars and this enclosure of this bird. So we are going to edit this in such a way that it doesn't seem to be taken in the zoo. So before I move forward and start editing this in Affinity Photo, let's just first analyze this and see how are we going to edit it, and what is something that we need to change in this picture. So clearly we need to brighten it up, and also need to remove these bars, these enclosure bars. And also if we try to brighten it up, you can see that somewhat a sky is visible here, and if we brighten it too much, it is going to create a problem in this area of the sky. So let's just start editing it. And the purpose of this video is not to show you how you can edit this particular picture. The purpose of this video is that to show you that if you have taken a pretty bad picture, you can still make it look great, by editing it in Affinity Photo. So you will learn different tips and different tricks to how you can make it look better. Another thing that you might have noticed at the top left here, you can see that it is a raw photo. It is not a JPEG photo. So I have taken it with a DSLR camera. So if you are a bit serious about photography, if you are doing it just as a hobby, and if you have not previously taken pictures in the raw format, it is always better, or I would say it is always something that you should do, is to take pictures in raw format. There are smartphones that can take pictures in raw format, and DSLR cameras, if you have one, you can take pictures in the raw format. So that is one thing that you need to know. If this would have been a JPEG image, we would not be able to make it there will be a lot of limitations. So it is always better if you have a raw picture to start with. So let's open up in Affinity Photo and start the editing process. So once you open the picture, that raw photo in Affinity Photo, you are automatically enter in this persona, develop persona. So Affinity Photo has different personas, and I'm not going to go into detail. So I'll just try to stay on topic. So this is develop persona, and this is where you will be able to edit the raw photos. It doesn't matter which camera you use, which model you use. If it is a raw photo, you will be this is where you will first enter in the Affinity Photo by opening that particular raw photo in this software. So we are here in the develop persona. The first thing is to I would like to do is to brighten it up. So I'm going to increase the exposure, which simply means we are going to brighten it up. So as we are brightening it, you can see that in this area, in this area of the sky, it is pretty losing the detail. It is becoming too much bright. So if we move it a little bit here, then this black point, we can bring some of the details, some of the color information back in the leaves and in this subject. And also it doesn't necessarily mean you don't have to follow the exact same thing for every picture. Every picture is different, and every picture will require different different what I would say that different values of these sliders. So let's decrease the brightness a bit. Decreasing the brightness is going to decrease it in these in the areas where it is too much bright. So we are going to decrease the brightness in the too much bright areas. Let's just increase the exposure a bit more, maybe increase the brightness a little bit. I think that's fine. Contrast, Let's just increase it a little bit, maybe just I think that is fine, about 2 or 3, something like that. Okay, next is the vibrance. Now there is a saturation. If we increase the saturation, you can see that the overall colors are in becomes more saturated. The color values increase, and it makes color more pop out. So we don't want every color to pop out. We just want to pop the colors which are slightly dull. So if we increase the vibrance, you can see that it affects only the color which are you can say in the mid tones, or the colors simply are pretty dull. Okay, another thing that I would like to show you here is that it is pretty this grain and this noise that you can see, because it was pretty dark picture. And also there are certain lines that you are seeing here, these stripes or lines. These are actually those you can say the lines of the enclosure in which this animal is present. So we want to remove those lines as well. Okay, let's go to shadows and highlights. I want to increase the shadows because in this area you can see it is too dark. Also in this area it is too dark. So I want to increase the shadows a little bit to bring some details in those particular areas. I think I might increase it to 100%. And as to the highlights, I want to decrease it because I want to, if I decrease the highlights, you can see that I can bring back some of these leaves. I can make this too much brighty a little bit less bright. So that is why I'm going to decrease the highlights, but not to the extent where I'm going to see some weird artifacts. I think that's fine. Maybe I would like to increase the brightness a bit. Okay, let's see the profiles. Profile, we don't want to mess it up. And the white balance, I think for now it's almost okay. Let's increase the contrast. Okay, yeah, I think that's fine. Okay, now the lens, we don't want to I don't want to mess anything with the lens. Removing it, I always check it, because if I uncheck it, you might see there is surrounding, the corners are kind of darken. We are going to darken the corners, but for this for now we just want to remove it. Okay, let's go to the details section. In the details section, we want to remove the noise. Because if I zoom in, you will be able to see that there is a lot of pretty small dots, that's called noise, and we want to remove it. And for this purpose we need to zoom in, because if we are zoomed out in this way, we will not be able to see how much noise is being removed. So we need to almost zoom it almost to the 100%. Let's remove the noise a little bit, and we want to keep some of the noise but not too much. And I think it's looking good. The noise is removed. You can see here it's not that much green. Let's decrease it a little bit, to see some of the noise. We don't want to look it artificial and plastic have a plastic look. So I think 10%, maybe a little bit more. I think 50% would be good for now, to decrease the noise. I think that looks fine. Let's zoom out, and already you can see that it is looking pretty good. The only problem now we have left is these enclosures, these bars and these stripes that we are going to see. We don't want to mess with the tones for now. We will do it later, and there is nothing going to be overlay. I think I'm pretty happy with this result. I might brighten this area of the peacock and the neck, but I will do it after finishing it in this developer for now. So that is all good for now. So let's press this develop button so that we can proceed with the further editing. So once it's finished with developing, you are going to go into this photo persona automatically. And let's just resize these windows so that we can clearly see what we are going to. So I don't want to see this navigation, so I'll double click this navigator and it's going to minimize it. And also for now, let's minimize this color option. Maybe later we might want to use these options, color option. So for now, let's minimize it. So this is the layers panel or layer studio, as Affinity they usually suggest to do it. So first thing that we now need to do is to remove these bars. And before I do that, I would like to isolate these peacocks on a separate layer. So let's just duplicate. I can right click this one and then press duplicate, select this duplicate option, or you can simply press Ctrl or Command J after selecting this layer. So the background is locked, that's good. And now we have this copy of the background, and we want to isolate this. You can see this peacock. So in order to see that, let's just create a blank layer above it. So let's let's create a blank layer, or maybe instead of creating a blank layer, let's create a fill layer, simply fill layer. So layer, new fill layer. So let's lock this fill layer and work on this background. So we need to create a mask in order to isolate this object. So this is the mask option. So if you have selected the layer that you want to mask, and you can simply click on this one, mask, and it will create a mask. So let's zoom in and try to create isolate this object. And the easiest, I wouldn't say easiest, but that's how I usually work, is that I select a brush tool and then I try to create a mask around the object, because it gives me more control. So before I start using the brush, I select this mask, and then actually I should select this mask layer, not the top layer. I would select the mask layer actually, and then in the color option, if I click, and I will be able to see which color I'm using. So the color that is the top is the color that I'm currently using. If you want to switch it, you can switch it, and then it goes to the white color. You can simply click this circle as well in order to bring it forward. So I'm going to use this black color, because black means it is going to hide the objects which I don't want to see. So I'm just using the bracket keys. I'm going to reduce the size of this. Where also at the top you might notice that I don't the hardness for this particular brush is 0, flow is 25, opacity is 100%, and then that's fine. So I might reduce it even further. There are different ways that you can mask an object, and some people try to use the pen tool, but in my opinion, this brushing, this thing is going to give you more control, and that's how I do it. So you can see that wherever I am painting, the white color is started to appear on this particular area, and that white color is actually this fill layer, that background layer that we have just created in order to see that what we are doing. So I'm going to create this slightly white type of area around all of my object that I'm seeing. Now if you are going to mess something, let's say I have just entered it inside this area, which I should not have. So simply you can press the X key, and in this area you can see that now the white is at the top. If I press again X, the black is at the top. So X is the shortcut. So you're going to select the white key, so that if you paint it with white, the object that was hidden is going to reappear. So this is what I'm going to do for the next few minutes, and I don't want to get bored because of this repetitive process. So I'll just speed this up for the moment, and I'll see you Actually, you will see this tutorial after I finished creating this mask around around that peacock object, peacock object, peacock object, peacock object. Okay, in fact, before I proceed further, you have noticed that I have not saved this document. I have developed it, but I have not saved it. So it is always the best thing to do is to save the document, so that in case of accidental crash of the software, your file is your progress is saved, so you don't have to start it from the start, from the beginning. So let's save it. Okay, now I'm going to proceed with this masking thing, 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 with this masking thing. So you can see that now I have created this slightly thin white line around the main subject of this picture. That are these peacocks, but which means that we have isolated it, but it not completely, which means that there is still there is still this area that is still visible also. We are going to remove this area as well, and instead of using the brush and painting it all over these areas, we are going to use this tool and this marquee tool, and try to fill the rest of the area with simply black color, and that is going to take care of it. And we're going to use this freehand selection tool. Now in this freehand selection tool there are different options, that is freehand, and there is this polygon. I'm going to select this polygon because I'm going to have a less irregular control over this thing. So I'm going to just put these marquee lines, simply clicking and then selecting inside this white area. And if I choose this option, add option, I will be able to add other areas which are not continuous. So that you can see there is a slightly this is discontinuation of these things, so but still we can add it after selecting this add option. So you can see I'm just clicking in this white area as as you can see possible as it can be. You can mess it up, but that is not a big problem. We can clean it up later on. So I'll just keep on adding this thing, and then I'm going to as I already said, I'm going to fill it with black, 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 going to. Now that I have selected the rest of the area, I can select the mask and then add it and then press fill. In the fill option, I'm going to use the custom color and then select the black color. And as soon as I change this slider option, you can see that it gives us a preview what it's going to look like. So I'm going to select apply, and that's how I have separate the peacocks from the background. And let's deselect everything by clicking in this deselect button. So we have deselected everything. Now we don't need this white background layer, so I'm going to simply select the layer and then press this remove layer button icon, that is the removes the layer. So now we want to do is to change the background a little bit, because if we just hide the layer, you can see that our objects are on this transparent background, but we still want to keep them in their natural looking position. But instead we want to change the background a little bit. So let's hide this peacock layer that we have just created or just finished. So after, by selecting the background layer, I will press Ctrl J or Command J and it will duplicate it. Now what we want is I want to remove these bars first, and the way you can do here is that now here you will see a healing brush tool, maybe a different tool depending upon what you are previously working. And if you click here, you will be able to select this option, that is the in paint brush tool. So if I select this one and I can increase it a little bit by using the bracket keys. So if I paint over this bar, let's say this one, and after releasing the mouse, or your pen, it is going to calculate it and try to remove it and fill it with the surrounding areas, and maybe it will be more clearly visible in this area, in this region. So let's see this one. So after releasing it, it's going to calculate it again and then remove this area. Now what I would suggest is to do it in parts, not paint over the whole thing, because that will be too heavy on your processor, and just do it in parts and it is easy to do. So again, paint on this thing again, and try to remove it. So again, it is calculating. For some areas you will be able to see that it has done a perfect job, but for some areas like this, you are seeing that it is not, it has not done a perfect job. But it's not a big problem. We can paint it over it again, and try to let it do the calculations again and try to make it more better the next time. So now you can see that it has done a perfect job. So similarly, we are going to remove this bar. Now you can see that the longest area or the bigger area I select, the bigger the more time it takes to calculate it and remove it. Now on this background layer, we want to remove these peacocks as well. We don't want to keep them in there because if we have already separated the peacocks and we don't want it on the background, to make it more because we are going to create and change some things on the background, and we don't want these peacock layers to mess up our background. Again, you can see that the more I select, the more time it takes to calculate it, and sometimes it messes it up, but it doesn't matter. We are going to repaint over it again. So I'll just paint over this thing again and let it try to calculate it again. Let's just remove this one first. Okay, now let's paint over all of this remaining area, because it might disturb the background if we select part of this thing. Select it partially. Now we want to now fix the areas which we might think can get a little bit problematic, and those little bit areas where we don't want to see any kind of things. And on this area you can see that this looks slightly copied, so we press it, try to remove these areas where it seems like it is a little bit copied from the other areas, like this one. We can try to remove these areas as well in those areas, and on this side you can see that it is slightly messed up, so let's just remove this thing as well. Okay, now our background is clear and our peacocks layer is on a separate thing. Now we can easily edit the background without even disturbing our original peacocks. So the first thing is that we are going to do is we're going to remove these horizontal, not the horizontal, actually these stripe looking areas, and it is present all over the background image. So another thing that you can see that we want to focus on this main subject of that is our peacocks. We don't want to focus on the background, so we can make our background a bit blurred. So we're going to go to filters and apply a blur effect. Let's select the depth of field blur. So we are going to increase the radius, and it is you might not see any change, but if we increase it too much, we will be able to see it what we are going to apply. So we want to focus it on this peacock, on the head of this peacock, and you can see that we have blurred the background, but it is too much. We might want to reduce it a little bit. I think that's slightly, I think that looks pretty good. Yeah, this one. Let's apply it. So the depth of field blur is applied, but still you can see behind the head of this peacock, you can see there is the leaves are visible, and if we zoom in, you can see that still those stripes are still visible. So which means we need to apply another blur effect also in addition to the depth of field blur. So we'll again go to the blur, and instead let's apply a blur Let's just apply simply a Gaussian blur. So you can see after applying the Gaussian blur, we can create a depth in this picture, a more depth looking presentation in this picture, and that is pretty good. I think we might want to apply it just a little bit, like 8 point something. I think that's fine for now. So I'll just apply that blur as well. Now if you hide this layer and if you see some of the repetitions, you can simply go to that areas and then try to remove those areas with this in paint brush tool again. I think that's fine. Okay, now you can see that here on the peacock, the neck of the peacock is pretty dark. We want to brighten it up a bit, and also you can see that our mask is not perfect, so we can still polish it up by selecting this one and selecting the brush tool. Okay, that's fine for now. I might give it more time and work on it a little bit more, but for the purpose of this tutorial, let's just finish it and let's create another thing. Let's do something else. So I am on this layer background, this peacock's layer. Let's just name it peacock. So I'm on this layer peacock, and another thing I can do is that I can brighten this area, these areas which are too dark, this neck area maybe on this side. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create an adjustment layer, and I'm going to create a you can say a curves adjustment layer. So if on this side, on the top side, it's brightening, it means that if I raise this one, it brightens it a bit, and you can say that it is too much extreme still. But another thing that we can do, if we raise this bar up a little bit, it brightens the dark areas, and I'm not going to brighten the whole thing as much as you can see here, just a little bit. So you can see it has brightened the whole thing, but we don't want it, so it means that we must want to mask it a little bit. So if we move this layer here, and then you can see here, if we drop it underneath this peacock layer, we have just create a clipping mask, and then if we select this curves layer and press Control inverse, Control I, it inverses the whole thing, which means that it has already created a mask and it has filled the whole thing with the black thing. Now we're going to go to the brush tool, and in the more options, what we are going to do is that we are going to play with this accumulation thing. So accumulation thing means in the preview you can see that it is affecting the you can see opacity of the thing. So in the dynamics, if you are using the pen pressure tablet, you can select this pressure option in the accumulation jitter, so that it changes with the pressure of your pen. So I have selected this option and then close, and if I go to this mask tool and then use this brush and try to apply it on these areas where I want to brighten it up. So I'll just decrease the opacity a bit, because I don't want to have an extreme effect of that brightening thing. So I'm going to paint it with white, so I'll select the white color. I might need to increase the opacity, so I'm just painting on the areas which I think are too dark and I want to brighten them up a little bit. Maybe I want to brighten these, its beak, and also the white areas in this peacock, maybe I want to brighten these feathers a little bit so that they pop out. You may brighten this up. So brightening of this thing is called, actually in the photography terms, is called dodging. So in a way you can say I'm dodging these areas. I'm not really concerned much about this back peacock because my main focus will be this front peacock. But still, let's just put a few brush strokes on this one as well. So during this whole thing, you might have noticed not noticed much about it. So if I hide this adjustment layer, you will be able to see what difference it makes in our original image. that's better. Now our background is separate, our peacock's layer is separate, we have brightened the peacock a little bit. Now it's time to, you can say that, change make some changes in the background. So you can see that light is coming from this area at the top left corner. So let's just create some way in which we can see say that this light being shown on this area. So let's create a new fill layer. So layer, new fill layer. So instead of a solid color in the type, we are going to select an elliptical gradient. So we are going to let's say this one, let's change it to maybe, you know, slightly orangish thing, and on the left side let's decrease the opacity of this one. So why we are not seeing any kind of gradient? Because it is at this corner and we need to extend it a bit. So we have selected this one, and maybe I want to change the position of this one, and okay, I messed it up again, so I'm going to drag it, and I think that light would look pretty good. So in this light, and then we want to change its blend mode, because that's not a good looking light. So let's try screen, maybe try color dodge. Color dodge is extreme. I think screen would look good. So screen is the bright light, and we have actually put it behind the peacock, so the peacock layer is not getting affected. So light affects everything, so let's move this layer at the top. So it is a little bit, you can see that, a bit of problematic. We want to decrease its opacity so that it's not that much, you know, too bright. I think that looks fine for now. Yeah, that looks fine. Okay, now let's create a vignette, and for that purpose let's create another solid layer, new fill layer. So I'm going to select this fill type solid, and I'm going to fill it with black. So in order to create a vignette, we need to create a mask first. So I'm going to press this mask button, and then it creates a mask. And now I'm going to choose this option, elliptical marquee tool, and I'm going to create a marquee thing. And now let's press Q, and then it enters this mask mode. Now we can select this move tool and change its position and edit it a little bit. So I have adjusted the position and rotation of this thing, and I'm going to press Q again. So I have this selection. So before if I go to the edit and then fill it with this black color, you will be able to see that they has these hard edges, but we don't want that. So for that purpose, we'll go to the select and then feather, and would like to increase the feather amount, let's say to maybe 900 something, and then apply it. So after applying that feather, if we go to the edit and then fill, it has this blended these you can say that the edges. So I'm going to apply it, and then going to press deselect, and let's save it again. So if we decrease the opacity of this layer, we kind of create a vignette effect and focus it on this area, main area, and let's just change it to multiply, to have this effect. So if we can decrease the opacity a bit further, we just want the corners and to be you can say affected by this vignette, but this whole thing still looks kind of washed out and dull. So how do we improve it? So we are going to, for that purpose, we are going to go to adjustment, and we're going to create curves layer, and we are going to apply an S curve, which means brightening the bright areas a little bit and darkening the dark areas somewhat a little bit. It actually gives the whole thing a contrast. So already you can see that it has improved the appearance of our picture a lot. And if I close this one and then hide this curves layer and then again unhide, you can see how much it has improved the whole thing. So but everything you can see that still is on layer. So if you want to change the opacity of this gradient that we have applied, we can still decrease it so it's not too much yellowish. And if we want to change this color, let's go to this layer, and let's, if we select this move tool, and if we will still change this color, maybe make it, instead of orangish, maybe slightly make it a little bit yellowish type thing. I think that's fine. As you can see, everything is only a separate layer. We can still decrease the corners lightness, and that looks pretty good. And we still have the peacock layer on a separate mask and the curves mask, and we can simply go to the curves and change the brightness of the peacock thing and the dark areas a little bit and make it more bright if we want to. It totally depends upon you how you would like to see your images. So you can see how much it has improved our image, and it's pretty good. Let's compare it with the original, actually that developed one that we have just initially the thing that we initially developed, the initial image. So I'm going to press Alt and then select the background layer. So this is how it was at the beginning of this editing process, not the complete editing, but after developing it, and this is what we had. And now this is what we have achieved. We have removed these bars, we have removed everything, and those stripe looking things, stripes thing, and still we can change everything if we want to change it. We have background on separate layer, we have peacocks on separate layer, we have this light on separate layer, we have vignette on separate layer. So this is how the editing is done. This is how actually I do the editing. Keep everything on the separate layer, so that if I need to change something in the future, if we need to adjust something in the future, I'll be able to do it. Now this is looking pretty good. I might fine tune a little some areas. You can see I might remove this thing background from this inside these whatever this thin plume or whatever that thing is called. So I might fine tune the mask a little bit, but that's fine tuning keeps on happening, and it totally depends upon how you want to see your image. So hopefully you have found this tutorial and the tips in this tutorial to be useful, and you can apply it for any image that you have. And what I would say is that the basic thing that you need to know is that if you have a raw image, you can improve that image a lot. So if I compare this thing with the original image that I had previously in the beginning of this tutorial that I've shown you, you can see that it has improved a lot as compared to the original image. So hopefully you have found these tips to be useful, and if so, and make sure that you like the video, and if you have found this tutorial to be useful, make sure that you subscribe to this channel, and don't forget to press that bell icon so that you can be notified about my future videos as well. And thank you for watching.